Alright YouTube, what is going on? Today I'm going to be doing a quick and very comprehensive guide on what is neutral game and spacing in this game. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because even though we're about 5 years into the game's lifespan, even though this game has been out for quite a little bit of time, I still do see a multitude of new players that have been asking me about these basic concepts. People that still want to get into the game, whether they saw their favorite streamer playing it, or they just wanted to pick up a new fighting game. And Tekken is, in my opinion, the biggest fighting game at the moment. I do see quite a few new players that want to learn the game from a fundamental standpoint. And the most fundamental thing in this game, in my opinion, is proper spacing and proper neutral game. And what is neutral? Neutral is the act of your opponent and you both not having any really frame restrictions, but you guys are free to move around as much as you please. You guys can do whatever you want, and there's no real frame advantage on either side, right? Nobody's at a disadvantage, nobody's at an advantage. You guys are free to move around as much as you'd like. And why is this so important? Well, the reason that neutral and spacing is so important, it is about 90% of the game, in my opinion, as Eris said when I first watched his video maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But spacing is so important because, one, it makes it much more difficult for your opponent to mix you up, right? So let's say, for example, I am standing right here very close to this guy. Both my opponent and I are very prone to being mixed up, right? There are so many factors in the game that make it extremely difficult to defend against, right? Because you got to worry about high crushing, you've got to worry about pokes, you've got to worry about hell sweeps. The game becomes much more 50-50 oriented if you are very close to your opponent, which can be very frustrating to deal with. But how do you get out of this is through proper spacing and proper movement. One of the best friends that you're going to have in this game is the Korean backdash, or just backdash canceling in general, which is basically when you are able to chain a multitude of backdashes together through doing some kind of other movement or function in the game, such as a down back or a sidestep. And there's 3 different ways to do a backdash cancel that I know of so far. You have the Korean backdash, which is back, back, down, back, back, neutral, back. And then you just continuously chain that motion. You really only need around 2 to 3 of them just to get to around a solid range like this. Or you could do... another way that you could do a backdash cancel is back, back, or back, back, quarter circle, back, back. So back, back, quarter circle, back. This is not my preferred method, so I'm sorry if it looks really sloppy, but you guys might want to pause the video just to take a look at the notation, but it's back, back, quarter circle, back, back. And then you just continuously chain that motion together. You just continuously chain that motion together. And the reason that this is possible is because you can buffer in your backdash with the back from your quarter circle back. You see? Your first back input comes from your motion, your range of motion that you're doing. So you only need one back input to complete the backdash. That's why backdash canceling is so prevalent and why it's so important, because you can do it so quickly and it allows you to space. Now, another reason that spacing is so important is that it allows you to create opportunities for a whiff punish. It allows you to create opportunities for a whiff punish, right? So let's say that you're going up against a crazy person that likes to spam a lot of moves just anywhere. It doesn't matter how close he is, but he's just pressing buttons. But you're seeing him visibly whiff a lot of things. If you notice that your opponent likes to press, for example, and that you have better spacing than him, well, then you could realistically always create an opportunity for a whiff punish. Let's see if I could do this. Just something like that. Let's see if I could just do something like that. That wasn't a punish because I was kind of slow with my electric, but you get the idea. You get the idea. I'm sorry. That was just one certain example. There's a lot of things that people could do in that situation, but spacing gets so important because you want to find opportunities where your opponent is in a vulnerable state. That's the only time that you can really hit your opponent, is when they are vulnerable, right? What another great thing about spacing is that you can see visibly how your opponent wants to react. And what do I mean by that? Let's say I'm back here, right? If I dash in, we can visibly see what our opponent likes to do. Maybe he likes to hold back and just block and take the mix-up. Well, that allows us to get a free mix-up. For example, let's say we're playing a Mishima and we see that our opponent just likes to hold back. Well, now he's open to 50-50s. He's open to 50-50s, right? Because we know that there's not much that he wants to do in that situation. Or let's say you're playing against a more seasoned player that likes to maybe sidestep into block. You know, he likes to sidestep. Well, now we know that whichever way that he likes to sidestep, we can do a move that appropriately tracks to whichever side he likes to sidestep. So we can throw in homing moves now. We can throw in moves that track to whichever way that he likes to sidestep. We can use how he responds to our spacing and our shows of aggression to formulate an offense against him. Maybe he likes to duck. We have mids for that. Maybe he just likes to backdash even more. That's not very different from just holding back. But it does make it so that we need to come a little further in. Another really popular strategy when people are approaching is just doing keep out moves. Just keeping them out. Just poke and try to keep them at a distance. If we notice that our opponent likes to press buttons to try to keep us out, depending on the buttons that he's using, we might be able to dash into block into a nice little whiff punish. We might be able to force him to whiff. And this is what allows an offense to really start steamrolling or snowballing, adding up. Because through spacing, we can formulate a game plan that can tell us where our opponent's vulnerable and what we want to do according to what he's doing. This is why spacing is so important, and that's why the mind games in Tekken are so steep. This is the biggest learning curve, I think, in Tekken, right? Because it's understanding what your opponent wants to do and then finding the optimal ways to deal with it. Because no option is necessarily better than the other. For example, if I'm playing a Mishima, let's say I'm playing Kazuya or something, or I'm playing Jin, and I know that, or I'm playing against a Jin, for example, and I know that his 50-50s or Kazuya's 50-50s can be sidewalked to the left, right? If I were to do something like that, the options are still unsafe because that opens us up to the tracking and homing moves, but it covers another option, for example, right? Does that make sense? It covers one option, and it forces your opponent to have to adapt to what you're doing. This is why I say neutral is the most important thing in Tekken, and it's the hardest thing to learn as well, because there are so many different scenarios where if they're approaching you, you have 3 to 4 options of responding, but not all of them will cover everything that your opponent's going to do. Does that make sense? I hope I could formulate that in a decent way. So this is why spacing has become so important, and why it always will be, in my opinion, the most steep learning curve in Tekken, because this is really where offense and defense comes into play. Through proper spacing, you are closing yourself off to mix-ups so that your opponent just can't, whale moves on you, constantly getting small advantages and just rushing you down with attacks. That's where backdashing and spacing and some kind of keep out moves come in. How is that coming out? But then it also allows us to formulate a game plan, because if we want to approach, we can visibly see how our opponent wants to react to what we do. And that can allow us to respond accordingly. Oh, he likes to sidestep whenever I wave dash at him. We can do a homing move. We can do a homing move for a knockdown into more pressure. Or we can do some kind of safer move that won't get us killed if we risk anything. This is why. So that's basically why. That's basically the gist of spacing. Sorry, this is my first YouTube video that I've really talked about a guide like this. So that's all I really have on this specific topic. If you guys have anything else that you want to add, then feel free to let me know in the comment sections below. I'm still working on how to formulate these videos. I have my notepad here, and I put down all my information. I hope that I delved into everything that I possibly could, but I wanted to keep the video relatively short so that you guys could just go through it and see what you want specifically to take out of the video. If you guys want more in-depth guides and how to deal with very specific things like keep out moves, how to deal with keep out moves in specific, or how to deal with side steps in specific, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. But that's all there is really on spacing. As in-depth as it is, it can be simplified very easily, in my opinion. It can be simplified, but it's still a very intense mind game and some kind of psychological warfare between you and your opponent. So that's all there is to it, boys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to give me any feedback in the comment section below if it was informative or helpful to you guys at all. And yeah, guys, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Thwift. And much love, everybody. Thank you very much.